Parshas Mishpatim. What a sicha, and so particularly apropos to the times that we find ourselves in now. So it's a sicha that I think on the one hand you think that the situation at what the Rebbe is talking about in the sicha can't be further than the reality that we face right now. But then on the other hand, perhaps fakert, that's why it's such a powerful and important sicha to remind ourselves as a idemes. So what do you think?
Yes and no. Yes, because the way I see it is that there is an essential, as the Rebbe says in this particular sicha, that the Rebbe is talking about a reality that, as we mentioned, that is fundamental, that happened already in the world. As Moshiach's influence in the world is already influencing the trends of people's thinking. That's what the Rebbe is saying, and the trends of the decision makers, that they are coming to us understanding that there shouldn't be any war in the world, and so on and so forth. And then I think what you mentioned, that it couldn't be any further than that, would have been my attitude for many last year or 2 years ago. A lot of people primarily sent me questions on Parshas Mishpatim when on that very week they announced, I think, some kind of an increase in nuclear spending. And
1 second. First, just to add context for everybody, this Parshas Mishpatim on base is the Sikha that Rebbe talked about the fact that the UN, based out of New York, which is the place that the Nasi Adoir established his base of operations in Chatzi Kador HaTachton, made a resolution that was truly the manifestation of the nevuah of Kitzu Chabaysim Le'itim, that the swords will be beaten into plowshares, with a resolution to take money that was originally designated towards warfare, military, etc., to use it for agriculture and boost things like that around the world. And the Rebbe speaks very strongly about how this is the influence of the Nasi Hadoir and Moshiach Shabedoir, that the world to bring the Umas Ha'ilam in line with the Yud of the Geulah in this regard. And this again was said in Nun Beis. The UN has since seen ups and downs, if we can say, and so carry on.
Okay, so when it comes to the UN as an institution itself, it's very interesting because they couldn't be farther away than what their mission is. In other words, and it's not like the Rebbe didn't know that the UN is full of trouble. As the Rebbe said to Netanyahu himself, that you're going into a house full of lies and you're going to light a candle of truth. And I think what the Rebbe said to Netanyahu then was before the Rebbe said the Sikha. There's no question the Rebbe was, having chas v'shalom, having like this imaginary thing about the UN. The Rebbe knew very well the UN's condition. But on the other hand, the Rebbe's talking about the essence of it, the essence of what it was established to be. The fact that there are corrupting forces over there taking things in a certain directions doesn't change the fact of what the essential establishment of the UN is supposed to be. Is it's supposed to facilitate world peace.
Right. And enable exactly. I mean, it's when people bring this up to me, I make that point that it's not like anything's changed in terms of the UN, and unfortunately, it's total improper outlook on towards its stated goal. That was back then. It was true. It was true back then as it is today. In fact, in other words, the UN hasn't changed in any significant way since Tashin Beis till the present. It's kind of staying true to form, to what it was back then. And the Rebbe, as you pointed out, was very well aware I think and what you're saying is key. In fact, the entire sikha, and this is what I kind of took away from the sikha, is the Rebbe is giving us the Das Elyon approach to Olam Hazeh. The Rebbe is not being a what's it called, a clinical optimist. Beautiful and it's wonderful, but it's not really very practical. The Rebbe is saying from Das Elyon, the Rebbe says, for example, these resolutions are not a piece Seichel Anushi, even though Seichel Anushi is mechayiv them, but they're coming from Har Sinai. You only get to Mishpatim from Har Sinai, not because of Seichel Anushi, but because Har Sinai is Geiser. The Nasi Hadayr is being Geiser in the Sikha that this is what the UN should be doing. It's not optimism, it's realism. It may take a little bit of time for the UN to catch up to the reality, but the Rebbe is putting forward was wie the Welt darf führen is Geiser din.
No, but I also think that there's a differentiation over here. When it comes to the anti-Semitism regarding Israel, that's one thing. But when it comes to the general idea of global peace, that the UN has set in its charter, that's what they want. Now, there's for Gentiles, it's a lot of times a hard time to make peace with the Jewish people, and that sinna, that blinding factor, is who says it's not going to last until Moshiach is here? That's not the Rebbe is talking about in the Sikha. The Rebbe is talking about that even though nations in the world throughout all of time resolve their conflicts with war, now there is a change in it. They want to diminish their capabilities, their warring capabilities, their weapons, and they want to turn it into the benefit of humanity. And the Rebbe says that's a new thing, and it based on pure intelligence, seichel anushi, which means it should have been something that we would have been appreciated 1,000 years ago. But the reason it didn't is because al pi Torah, it wasn't the time of Moshiach yet. And now it's al pi Torah, the time of Moshiach. We came to the time of a, and that's the reason why it's beginning to make sense in the heads of states and the heads of nations to turn their warfare into a thing. But when the first question you asked me is regarding, and I think in addition to the UN, just a couple of years ago, we have the Ukraine war, we have Russia and Ukraine, we have various different elements that seem to be a throwback of what the Rebbe was saying. So I think, just to make clear, is that would have been a question. It was bothering me very much 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But this year, we're watching kind of like the world resynchronizing regarding this particular prat. And Dafkin this week, beginning last week and this week, is when there is an actual boots on the ground talking about making peace in Ukraine and in Russia to end that war. And in addition to that, there was an announcement last week on Thursday where the president announced that he wants to seek denuclearization. And today I even saw a story that he wants that they should reduce their weapons by half, 50%. That's huge. And he says the monies can be used for something much better. Literally what the Rebbe said in Parshas Mishpatim Nun Beis. So the way it's coming to me is there's an interesting thing. It's like the Rebbe is saying that the sky is blue. That's the reality. Sky is blue. It's possible you're seeing clouds. You're not seeing a blue sky. So you can imagine the sky is a different color, but that's because there are certain clouds that are passing over. As we're moving to the Geulah, there are certain little puffs of gullus that are still blowing in the air. And as these things blow away, you're going to come back to the essential truth. The essential movement or the essential direction that humanity is taking is already in Moshiach's territory. And my own personal take on all of this, I think that there has been a tremendous war against Moshiach and against Moshiach's evolution in the world since Chav Zayin Adar and Gimel Tammuz and all these inyanim, because we know that that's what it's going to be. The Rebbe mentions it as well, that as we get close to the Geulah, the powers of Sitra Achra, the powers that are fighting Geulah, are going to push back. And we've watched that on many levels, which I don't want to go into right now. But it seems like right now there is again a flip and a spin where things are turning l'toivas the Jewish people, l'toivas everything Moshiach in the world. We're watching that kind of recollaborate, and it's happening right now, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, agreed. Wanted just to add on that Nakuda, I think that it's the fact that there's the kind of a ticklish sense of how much do we incorporate current events and interpret current events in terms of our outlook, et cetera, et cetera. And we see, I think, that Bechlal, the Sikha, is one of those indications that we don't shy away from looking and discovering Moshiach elements in a fakir. To a certain degree, that's everything that we're meant to do. We're meant to in what it means the Kalpnei Moshiach means that to uncover in this world how the ganze Welt steht great for Moshiach. And so to look in the current events, etc. But to a certain degree, I think the Rebbe, again, a Nekuda of the Sikha, is not so much that we follow current events, but we lead current events. The Rebbe is not saying because the UN was machlit, they haben gebracht a Tritt nenter zu Geulah.
The Rebbe says because man malke Rabbanon. And because there was a psak din about Moshiach.
It's not in today's day. What's happening? It's not Donald Trump that he just got the biggest chus that he was mentioned in connection to Dvar Malchus. That erfit us on it. The Rebbe is showing, are teaching us how to have an oiskuk. And it's important because then Fakert that puts the responsibility squarely on us. Man Malki Rabbanon and Bechlal, the Balabatischkeit von ganze Welt, the Balabatischkeit from the UN. The only reason the UN is in New York is because the Rebbe gefindt sich in New York. And the only reason that the UN made the Sachlat is because the Nasi Adair is Geiser or Bechlal bringt zu Nente to them. So to say to those that are ticklish of this, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that we get our to a certain degree our Yiddish our spiritual marching orders from events that occur in the Welt. In fact, the opposite. The Welt gets its marching orders from the spiritual reality, from the Ruchnis, from the Emes, from the Man Malki Rabbanon. And I think that's key to a certain degree. The Rebbe was talking about.
I think with what you're saying becomes clear because in the beginning of the Sikha, the Rebbe says there is an event that happened, and this is a hayra, and this has to teach us benegeya our ikar avoda lahavili moisa Mashiach. Since it's a major event, it should be a major hayra regarding our avoda lahavili moisa Mashiach. But then the Rebbe doesn't really explain what the hayra is. If you look in the Sikha, I was trying to comb through the Sikha. In the end, he says, after all of this that's happening, which you see that Mashiach is already poil in the Welt, in Sif Test, the Rebbe says, Verta Himmel geschrei. If so, why are we still sitting in Golas? If this is happening already, why don't we have yet the basement? Why didn't we receive yet a Hayra b'negei lebinyan beis hamikdash? It's a very powerful Aussprache of the Rebbe. It says, noch nicht angekommen da Hayda. We haven't yet been noticed. And the Rebbe says, and therefore, it's a simon that we have to do whatever we can. And one of the things he says is that we have to act more b'tzedek or b'mishpat with each other. Avas Yisrael, we should act more with those in Yanim and more gemilas chasadim. And also the other hayra in the end is the other thing. Oh, we should be oisik and be marchiv, but since we need to activate Parshas Teruma, building the Beis HaMikdash, so we should increase making Batei Mikdash all over the world and increasing in all these inyanim. But that doesn't seem to be like the main, like what the Rebbe says in the beginning. What's the hayra? So I think the undercurrent of the entire Sikha is, take a look over here. You're seeing how our impact is having a change globally on billions of people and on those that are making the decisions. So realize how impactful each and every one of us is to be able to make this to happen. And the fact that it's happening should give tremendous encouragement and chayas to start living more in this Mashiach consciousness and in this Geulah state of mind so that we can bring about and make this happen to a much greater degree. And it's interesting when you mentioned that, right in the beginning, you mentioned the Rebbe says, like the Rebbe usually, we don't use current events. But I think what this Sikha was very interesting, what made it so different than every Sikha, as I said yesterday in a share that I gave, is usually when the Rebbe came into the Fabrengen, he's coming in with the Chumash, he's coming in with Parshas HaShavua. It's almost as if in this Sikha the Rebbe comes in and he puts down the newspaper on the table and he says, it's like the Rebbe takes the thermometer and he tests the waters. He's looking at the state. But obviously, he knows it from the inside. He doesn't need the world to know because he says befedish that we're the ones making it happen. But he's trying to show us if this is what's happening already, how much more so should we realize? Now, I'm just thinking if the Rebbe said this to us 33 years ago, and all the pu'ulas that has been done since then, now it's so much more.
You see, to me, that's the ganze nekuda. What you were saying, what you just said, really to a certain degree, the Rebbe is telling us, the Rebbe is showing, using this event at the UN, not to show us that because of these events, we're angekommen auf der hechte Zeit. Verkehrt, to show us, Chevre, look at the progress we have made and see its impact in the Welt, because the Baal Shem Tov hat uns gewiesen that Yiddishkeit doesn't present a bifurcated reality where Ruchnius and Gashmius, where with Torah and mitzvahs and Olam. Verkehrt, we have to feel the responsibility that our work is what's necessary to change the world. And the Rebbe is saying, this is a raya berura from the Welt, that what we're doing is having a profound effect. And it's having an effect that right now the Welt weiß as is great after Geulah. And to a certain degree, I think that's the hayra that the Rebbe is saying, that we're so close that we have to cry out to ourselves, why aren't we there yet? In other words, there's this to feel as that we're sending the call to Shamayim, Epis, with a Shaila Apliya, rather to a certain degree, we have to get across the finish line over here. So, like again, there are events. The Rebbe is teaching us that when you look at was tutzich in the Welt, sense the achrayus and that we have to what is occurring. We are the ones that are making these things happen. As I was mentioning, Mesiras Hashtachim is in the negative, that what it says that when we make our own shtachim causes Mesiras Hashtachim. Also, they ask why is the Rebbe screaming at the Chassidim about Mesiras Hashtachim? Because when we make our own shtachim, but here, if I care, the Rebbe is saying, look at what has been accomplished. Look what has been accomplished in taking Har Sinai and bringing it into Mishpatim. But for whatever reason, we're still not done. What else do we need to do? Feel that bren to say, if we're so close, but we're still not there. And so again, we see signs that show us. I think at the same time, you can look. You see, Amol is thus the Medidos, Amol is thus the Mesikos, but both of them should be motivated. The Mesikos that were so close, the Medidos that were not there, and there are still events that show as Nachnish angekommen. Both of them have to be motivating factors in our Zich. What else do we need to do? We see something that shows us that we have accomplished tremendous. Again, the fact is, there's no doubt about it that the Welt is in ganzen anders than it once was, and it was because of the Mamlechas Kohanim v'Gei Kodesh as gewissen the Welt, that Amol, the greats of history, are Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan and Napoleon Bonaparte, all these bloodthirsty conquerors. The Welt barimmt sich mit Milchama. And these people. Nobody's looking at conquerors as great people. It's a whole change in the mindset of humanity, and das ist durchgetan geworden durch Klal Yisrael. So, and we did it, and now the world has put an official stempel. And Unbeis, the world says we're done. The era of war is over. Now,
it's interesting that day. It's not mentioned in the Sikha, but that day was actually the official end of the Cold War. The day that Rebbe said the Sikha. The Rebbe is talking mainly on the event that happened on Friday, the meeting there. But on Shabbos, Gorbachev and Yeltsin officially ended the Cold War. So the Rebbe is kind of saying that that's an end of an era. It's an end of a golustige. We're starting. It's a whole new world right now.
Right.
And when you know that,
until it's
tremendous empowerment.
Until it's the Hisgalus of Geulah, it doesn't mean there won't be, to certain degrees, echoes of this schmutz. But the era of the Gullus
it's debris. It's Gullus debris that's still floating around. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
But it's not. Yeah. It's not the. It's no more the substance.
Yes. And in the big span of things, it was just yesterday that Rebbe said the Sikha. It's frustratingly long. It's impossibly long for us. And yet every second in Gullus is. But the bottom line is ut. Mishteh noch als in the ut. And the bottom line is that zu fühlen as the Geschrei bei sich. Bei sich darf man gefühlen the Geschrei nicht. We don't, that the Rebbe uns echt ausgelernt, that when you're sitting there, man schreit, wenn es tut weh zu etwas, also man macht nicht mit der Hand and say, oi, and then feel, elefanachis. No, tevepul achas me elefanachis. Don't, nicht ein Ausgeschrei, and that's it. And jetzt now you can feel good because you've felt the pain, the cheshkas of gulps. No. What more can I do? Looking at the situations, whatever the situation is in the Welt, that is a month by sich that we have to be a leader. We have to lead this to the Geulah. If the schmutz of Gullus is still affecting the era of Geulah, what is it that I have to do? Where's the schmutz in my own Geulah Dikkelot talk? That allows for the shmutzerai to still somehow exist, because the fact that there is still a shemetz menhu of whatever this is because owns the foot soldiers of the Rebbe are still have work to do. So that balabatish that das elyon the oiskuk that nicht as me learned that these world events are leading the circumstance, but verkehrt, it is the world events is a beweis, almost like a proof after the fact, an echo, a result of what is
interesting. How the Rebbe makes mention of that. You know, the Rebbe makes mention of that. He says, he speaks about the greatness of the event, and he points to the event happening on a Friday, happening in New York, how it's all makusha, all this in it. But then he says, but when do we find out what the teichen of the event is? That only happens Shabbos, because we read Parshas Mishpatim, then we go, so this is what the event is. In other words, this last nakuda, that you know how to, you look at the event, and then you realize that it's Mishpatim, it's Sinai that is causing the Mishpatim. That happens on Shabbos when you read Ve'ela Mishpatim. And by the Rebbe, that last point, that it becomes revealed about what happened on Friday. And then again, it happened Friday, but it takes a deeper understanding of Torah to be able to understand retroactively of what happened. That's just as exciting in the discovery than that the event happened itself, because that's the empowerment. Because only when you know what's causing the event are you empowered to make it happen more and more.
Also, I mean, the reminder of the Rebbe, go back to the playbook.
Yes.
If you want to know the impact, go back.
Go back to the Torah.
Exactly. You want to know how to really have a profound impact on whatever it is that we're doing. It's Torah, it's mitzvahs, it's the Erfes Chaim of Torah Chassidus, was weiß uns not only how to affect our lives, but to Pasha change all of existence.
Iker, Moshiach now. It's Galus right now. We're all ready.
That's right. We have to be Megala Moshiach. We. It's in our hands. It's in our hands to make to bring the ganze Welt to that state of Geulah without any schmutz, without any Geulah schmutz, pure 100% Geulah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm just going to leave a last point, is that the Rebbe is so much insistent, not only that it's all indicating era of Geulah, and that Geulah is happening from this, but the Rebbe is so strongly makasher in a Sidarenu, that it's the work of the Rebbe, and it's the Nasidarenu that's pushing this and making this happen, and the Rebbe, it's like the Rebbe is so insistent on it in the Sikha. It's just really interesting. And then you of course have the incredible expressions at the end of the Sikha, where the Rebbe expressed himself like never before, where the Rebbe speaks about the Pirushim and Miyad and how it's close to our generation, and the Rebbe goes to 3 generations, and when Benegay himself, he says Moshiach, Menachem, Yosef, and then in the Mamish, we can't ignore the fact that in the Mamish, in the Sikha it says in all the Perushim of Mamish, but the actual words that Rebbe used at the time was, you have the videos of it when the Rebbe says B'chol Rosh Shel Mamish. It's something that you see from the Rebbe, that the Rebbe says this needs, in order for the Peulis of Mashiach to be revealed in the world, our avodah is the his galus of Mashiach as well. And from the way it appears to me, not just the his galus of inyanim of Mashiach in the world, but the his galus of knowing that is poil, where it's coming from. That seems to be part of the package very strongly in this Sikha.
If it's our job to clarify to the world the Geulah, so darf sein klar bei uns.